I'm the youngest engineer in a direct reporting team of 6 and in a wider dev team of 60 people, yet I'm still the youngest. There are some perks that I didn't expect to get, but there are also some tricky situations which I also didn't expect to be in. And in this video, I'll be talking about my journey and what it's like to be the youngest on the team and how you can also make it work for you if you're in the same position. I started in a corporate engineering team when I was in my second year of uni, and at that time I was working on a front-end development team which was made up of 4 people, excluding any product owners, just 4 engineers. And I was the 5th as an intern, and then once I started my full-time role, I moved on to the back end, which is a team of 6 engineers, excluding me, so 7 in total, but that's the largest team in the dev organization. And there are about 12 different teams that go on and who manage the whole organization. But I'm still the youngest amongst all of them, and when I first joined, this was such a big perk because everyone just gives you leeway. That's the biggest advantage that you have when you're the youngest. Everyone, you can ask as many questions as you want, people, you can be as curious as you want, and people enjoy that. They like to see someone who brings in a breath of fresh air into the team. In second year of uni, I did not have any experience which was engineering related. That was my first time going into corporate as an engineer. I had more experience doing customer handling and all of that stuff, but engineers don't care for that. They're the least concerned when it comes to the customer experience and how you're dealing with customers, because at the end of the day, we're just dealing with machines, not people. When I first started in corporate as an engineer, everyone knew that this was my first ever role in engineering, and so no one expected me to excel and just be like the best engineer out there and come and fix all the problems and the tickets to be resolved. It was not my responsibility. I was given so much leeway to learn, and I think that's one of the biggest advantages you have when you're a junior engineer or someone who's just starting out in a new role. The people who've already been there for a couple of years or who are just ahead of you in the role, they know that you're just here to learn. You need time to learn, and you have that space to learn as well. And so the number one advantage of being the youngest on the team is the space you're given to learn and the amount of support you're given to learn as well. You can ask everyone as many questions as you want, and 99% of the time all those questions will be answered, and they'll look at it in a positive light, that you're curious about the work they're doing and you're willing to contribute to the team as well and really understand what goes on. This curiosity leads you to being more included in the teams. Whether I was only working on one customer facing team, but I was involved in and out of all other teams that were going on, whether that was data engineering, data science, backend, DevOps. I was involved with everyone because I was curious about why one system that we're using, why it's being deployed this way, who's managing the deployments, and I'd go talk to them. Just a simple Teams message, it leads you to being more included. And because I was always curious and really wanting to learn as part of the organization, because for me it wasn't just an internship, I want my whole career to be revolved around this role, and I'm really passionate about engineering and being an engineer and solving problems. I want to help real people. So even though as an engineer the problems I was solving were not real world related, they were just pretend problems that the senior engineers came up with, so I had work to do, but it gave me that space to be curious about what the company is actually doing. If I did make a solution that is pretend, how this would be implemented, how this would impact the customers, and what the journey would be for this. And I think when you're in an engineering focused role, especially in the back end, you can completely forget about who's using the systems and who is benefiting, but that question of why we're building this is always most important to ask. And a few of the time the feedback I got was, thank goodness you asked why we're building this, and well done for asking why. And I think that led to a lot of recognition and progression throughout, which I've moved into. And this inclusion and all this mentorship comes as being the youngest. You wouldn't want to mentor someone who's older than you in most situations because you just have that sense of inferiority, like they already know it all. But when you know someone is fresh in the role and they are using the advice you're giving them and all the support you're giving them, then you become someone who's mentorable, that's a word, and someone who people like to coach as well, especially if you take on their feedback with promptness and you're like, oh, this is how I implemented what you taught me last week and here's the result I got out of it. People really appreciate that, and people want to teach you more and give in their secret tips, especially as engineers. They don't really talk to people or just give out their coding practices openly, but you can get them to do that, and it really does benefit you in the long term. When people are mentoring you, they're also giving you this opportunity to build early relationships with them. And even though I worked on the customer team for about 2-3 months in total as part of my engineering, I was able to build those relationships with those senior engineers. And now when I'm building back-end systems which rely on the front-end systems or interact with them, I can just message people and they're happy to help and happy to jump on a call. Is building these early relationships and foundations which put you in a position to benefit other people, because people can come to you as well. They know that you've worked with these systems, you have an understanding of them, and you can also ask other people for help and interact with them, and it makes the workplace just a way funner place to be in, where you can actually just talk to anyone around you rather than just your group selected 6 people that you're put in a team with coincidentally. I love the 6 people that are on my team, but sometimes when I go into the office, they're not in the office. So what happens is that I might feel excluded if I didn't already know all the other people working there. But because I talk to almost everyone in the office, I can experience more joy out of going into the office and have a nicer time every time I go in, because everyone around me has something to share and something valuable to offer, and I can take advantage of. I built those relationships early on, when, especially during my internship period where I was in the office 5 days a week. I was able to interact with as many people as I could, and I really took advantage of that. And the final thing, which I think is such a big advantage of being a new employee, is that you bring a fresh perspective to the team. And I'm not the newest on the team anymore because people have joined after me. I'm still the youngest, but I'm not the newest. But I think when new people join the team, they always bring a fresh perspective because they always question why we're doing something. After myself, we had a senior developer join, and he is someone who always questions why we're doing anything, what's the necessity of a meeting, and as a junior, I didn't feel confident enough to ask why are we even in this meeting, because I didn't benefit out of some meetings, but I felt obliged to attend them. But he always asks that, and it's doubled productivity for me as well, because it has encouraged me to ask, why am I even doing a certain task? Why is a certain task taking me half a day to do? Am I wasting time? Am I going down a rabbit hole I shouldn't be in? And this fresh perspective when you're younger and newer is always more appreciated by the seniors, because they're willing to answer the questions. Whereas if you're all seniors and someone asks why, it's almost like a challenge to the other person who's offering it. Or if you're a junior and coming from a place of ignorance towards what's going on in the organization, people are more willing to explain and even take on the newer perspectives that you have to offer. So allows you to grow with knowledge and with your contributions that you make to the team. But despite all of these contributions that you can make, I think the con of being a new engineer comes through not having the confidence to say what you think. I'm very confident in my solutions that I produce for certain code, but even in certain meetings which I was in initially, I found myself not being confident enough to say, I think this code should be done this way. Not because I felt that it was a bad solution, but because I felt that the seniors always have more to offer and my solution isn't valuable as theirs. Whereas what I should have done is actually just told my manager, like, here's my solution, what do you think of this, and gotten feedback on it. I do that now, but I think I missed quite a large amount of opportunities to get that feedback, which I think would have been valuable, about why I'm thinking of a certain system in a certain way and why the senior engineers approached it in a certain way. I think this comes as part of like an imposter syndrome of, I'm in a room where I maybe don't even belong because I'm the youngest, and all of these people are well into their late 30s, early 40s, even their 50s. So who am I to even share this perspective? And I think that imposter syndrome is so real, and it goes away after doing a certain amount of work, but I don't think I've gotten rid of that imposter syndrome. It still is very deeply ingrained in me, and I think it always will be as I move along, because even when I speak to senior engineers, they sometimes feel the same way. And one of the senior engineers I was speaking to, I asked him, like, when do you actually feel ready, like, you as good as an engineer? He goes, I still don't feel ready. And he's been engineering for 20 years, so I think I'm a long time away. Considering I'm working with all these people with like 20 plus years of experience who are in their 40s, 50s, have children, I think there can also be a generational gap when you're the youngest on the team. And I personally haven't had to overcome a huge generational gap because I think everyone runs purely on vibes where I work. And so it's really easy to get along with people. However, I think having basic respect and morals and saying thank you and please, and that gets you a long way with people, and don't think that can be overlooked in any role, whether you're the youngest or the oldest. But I think being the youngest with manners is definitely something which the older generation really appreciates, and it's something I've experienced in other roles, not just as an engineer. But I would definitely keep that in the back of your mind, like, am I being the politest version of myself to these people who are older and more have maybe more traditional views in terms of how seniors should be treated? And the generational gap is real, though I personally haven't experienced much consequences of it. I know in other corporate roles, my friends, for example, have been really overlooked by their seniors because they just don't find them as experienced, and they can be excluded from some activities as well. But putting yourself out there, and this is where interacting with the seniors and putting yourself out there really comes into play, that they're happy to talk to you, they're happy to look at you as someone who wants to be part of this organization, who wants to provide value to all the teams. And so it all comes hand in hand. It's not that you can have one thing without the other. You need to give value to get value, and you need to make other people feel appreciated to then be appreciated for who you are and what you're giving into the company. And I think this providing value often puts a lot of pressure on me being the youngest, or anyone who's the youngest, that we want to give as much value as possible, because we see the seniors or people who are ahead of us getting these big hefty tickets which are really moving the company forward. They're really making a difference to the business and the profits that they're making. But as a junior, I'm just getting BAU tickets, which are just little side quests that you're doing to maintain the systems and keep them going as they are. So I don't feel that I'm giving the same amount of value, but I'm comparing myself to people who've been in this organization for 10-14 years. That mindset needs to be addressed within me as well, but I don't want to address it. I want to compare myself to these people who are so great, and I want to be exactly like them and keep pushing myself forward as well. And so despite all this pressure that I put on myself that I want to be better, I'm happy that I put this pressure on myself, because it keeps me going, keeps me improving. When I look at the 2 or 3 of the seniors on my team, and every time I hear them speak, it encourages me, like, oh, I need to get back in, I need to go learn these things, I need to get better at using Docker images and Azure pipelines, I need to get good with this. And a healthy amount of pressure always gets you far as a junior, but it's how you take it. I definitely do acknowledge that the pressure is there. What I've learned from being the youngest on an engineering team is that you should be more confident in yourself. I definitely wasn't when I first started, but as I've grown to be more confident in my own voice, I've realized that asking questions and observing what's going on in the company really helps you become a better engineer and a better contributor to the business overall. And asking questions is something that people are always afraid to do, so you should be the one, it's easier said than done, but you should be the one to put yourself forward and ask why something is happening, how something is happening, whether you can contribute to something, whether you can always ask, can I take on this task? And having that sense to put yourself out there, and even if that means taking on a bit more work than your normal workload and being helpful to someone outside of your team, it goes a long way as a person and as an engineer. When you're asking these questions, you also have to prepare your own voice, and then again the point of having confidence in your own voice comes back in that you have to be prepared with your own voice. You have to be open to sharing your opinion. It can't just be off instinct, although sometimes it is for me as well. It can't just be, I think we should do it this way because I think of this, like because I think this is how we should do it. There needs to be reasoning behind it, and you should provide logical solutions rather than abstract and emotional solutions, because although that might seem justified to, I'm sure 10 people in the room, not everyone will be in line with your sentiments. 8 out of those 10 people might just completely ignore your sentiments because they can't see a reason to support you, but 2 people that you've built a relationship with who can understand where you're coming from might just support you, and those might be the people who really get your solutions implemented. And so you need to build relationships with the people around you, not just superficial work relationships that you have going on, but genuine respectful relationships where you're valuing them as a person and as an engineer, and someone who's got that much more experience, who's that much more valuable to the business. And those relationships will get you so far. So have respect for people, have curiosity for what they're doing as well, and how they've learned, what they've learned in their years of experience, and what you can benefit from it, and what you can benefit from it as well. You can always leverage your youth, is what I've realized as well. Because I'm the youngest, I have so much time to learn compared to someone who, if they joined as a senior developer and they want to be a tech lead, that they need to do a lot more in a short space of time to get to that position. But I'm working, I'd say to become a senior, it'd take me about 5 to 7 years. That's the typical journey from junior to senior lead, senior developer. It's about 5 years of experience given the 10,000 hours that you're working, etc. And to put in all those hours, you can always leverage your youth and your fresh perspective, and that is such a big thing. That's a big value point that you're giving to the business as well. It's a fresh perspective, and in a lot of corporate situations, what I've realized is a lot of older people. There's barely any younger teens, people in their early 20s or teens or late teens who are joining, and so it's always a fresh perspective, and people are happy to take it on because, believe it or not, the internet generation is quite on the younger side, and appealing to that audience is necessary in a business as well. And so you just need to keep it in mind that you're giving a fresh perspective, but make sure it's a perspective that has preparation prepared behind it. As I said earlier, you need to have logic and valuable reasoning behind it as well. And what I'd also mention is that when you're the youngest, you can set small wins, and that will build your credibility. Like, let's just say I agree to do a small project, which is just like a spelling change, and I take ownership of that little tiny change that I've made, which is just a spelling change. And every time a spelling change comes up, I'm like, I'll take this on, I'll do it straight away. It builds that credibility for you. People know they can rely on you, and that takes you a long way in your journey as well. Being the youngest person on the team isn't a handicap, and in fact, if anything, I think it has way more benefits than any cons that I could ever mention. And being the youngest, you have the opportunity to observe more, to learn more, to communicate more, to be included in other opportunities outside of your technical roles and opportunities. And so I hope anyone who's in a position to be the youngest on the team doesn't take it as something to feel scared of, but rather as an opportunity to learn and grow as a person. And so if you're a junior and also in a similar position of being the youngest on your team, or just starting out in your career, leave a comment down below what you found the most difficult, and let's all talk down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.